reinvention is you need you need the vision of where you're going. You need courage, right? You have to have the courage to trust your abilities and that you'll be able to find your way. And you need to have clarity about it. You need to be clear because I think without those things, it can be daunting. And I think that you don't step into it wholly.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to the podcast, Leslie. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
Why don't we just dive right in? I have so many questions for you about your LA studio, and like your whole career is so fascinating. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners in
Okay,
your own words?
sure. My name is Leslie Abner. I've had my own interior design firm since 1999. It's a big,
What?
a lot of years ago. And
Okay, stop. I'm sorry. How is that possible? You look so young. You look like you're my age, and I graduated from high school in 2000. This is not possible.
No, oh my
This is not
gosh.
possible.
I can't believe
What
that.
is your
Thank
magic?
you. Thank
Holy
you.
cow.
I know I have three daughters. I think they won't tolerate me being anything but, their little pet to make their mom cooler.
Oh my God. Okay. Sidebar, unrelated, but 2 days ago, my daughter, who's only 8, was like cuddled up. We were on the couch and she's looking up at and she's like, Mommy. She's like, Mommy, I can see your gray hair. I think it's time to get it colored.
Oh no.
I was
Oh
like,
no.
wait a minute. These are not the values I'm instilling, but I do color my hair. And so I thought, oh, holy, she's keeping me to task.
Listen, in the business that we're in, we appreciate beauty, we appreciate details. So I think that for many of us, it runs throughout our entire life, not just our home and our business.
Absolutely. Anyhow, that was
So
the sidebar. I want to
yeah,
hear more.
thank you. You're so
19,
sweet.
oh my God,
You're so,
1999. So you know
and yes.
everything.
So I don't know. I tried. I worked for some interior designers in New York City, and finally I realized I can do this. And people were coming to me. And at the time, I was living in Manhattan, and I built a really nice business. It was predominantly residential. I don't know, for some reason, I was doing a lot of bachelors, a lot of single guys who just didn't know what to do. And they would hand me the checks and say, help, I need help. And it was great. It was such a great experience. And as my life continued and I moved to the suburbs of New York, my business, depending on the situation with my children, I would dial it back, I would dial it up, I would dial it back. I was kind of like ebbing and flowing. And then I always was asked to do a natural transition. Can you do my husband's office? Can you do my office? And then I started joining a networking group to kind of push that out a little bit more and explore that because I was really losing faith in the residential interior design. I was exhausted from it. I felt like it was much more of an emotional, psychological agreement with a client rather than the design stuff. It was just becoming hard. And the industry had changed. There's Wayfair and there's House, and a lot of people feeling that they could do it themselves. Even when they did hire me, I felt like kind of undervalued. So I just joined a networking group, and I met with a bunch of people regarding more commercial line work. And there was a contractor there who just, for a year, he was like, please come do some medical offices with me. Please come do it. I said, I don't know. I don't know that I know this world. I don't know that I can do it. And finally he said, listen, there's a job not far away from, where you live, where your home office is. Just do the job and let's see. And then it just kind of took off from there. And it's been a very slow burn. And now for the first time, I'm starting to lean into marketing and doing some public speaking and joining some more dominant networking groups in the medical and dental field. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Okay, whoa, like that's amazing. I want to go way back because you said so many nuggets there that I'm like, amazing. You said when you were working with residential clients, it felt more like, I think these were your words, a psychological contract.
Yes.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Because that just resonated with me. And I bet it resonated with a lot of the residential designers who are here because I know designers and I know that they often feel, the residential ones feel undervalued. Exactly what you said. They feel like, oh my God, this is so much work. And the clients make it, it's all more about dealing with clients than it is about picking the finishes, ensuring things are done right. Like there's such a juggle there. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that experience. Like, how did you come up with
Well,
that
Rebecca, I
term?
really think you just hit the nail on the head that I started realizing after so many years in the business that interior design is less about interior design and more about problem solving with your client's emotional journey on, that they think they've made a mistake with the decision or they can't make a decision. Problem solving with obviously in the supply chain, there's, 20 people between when you choose the item and when it shows up at your door. So many people touch that item. There's so much room for error that we have no control over, yet we're being held accountable for that failure wherever it is in the system.
Yeah.
So it just became, I just started analyzing what I really wanted to do. And I didn't want to be doing problem solving anymore. I didn't want to be doing that. And I didn't ever realized it, but the commercial space is, while there are constraints, I feel that the constraints sometimes challenge you to spark your creativity even more because the constraints aren't based on someone's emotional feeling and ability. The constraints are based on technical things, things that doctors need. They're just actual things that, architecturally have to be done a certain way, and the doctors need it a certain way. It's productivity at the end of the day. And the emotional part of it is how we make the patients and how we make the staff feel when they're in that space. And it kind of flips everything on its head. And I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. It's so true. I always say to designers the difference between residential and commercial. And I've not done a lot of commercial. I've done a little bit, enough to see that there's a big difference. And is that with residential, you've got the clients being like, well, that's not the exact shade of blue that I was anticipate. And then in commercial, they're like, great, yeah, we like blue. And let's move on to the next thing. And it's
Yes.
so different.
Yes, yes. And it's great because they're so appreciative too. They love their space. And it's funny because I built and designed three homes of my own over the years. And every single time people have come into at each one of those homes, they've said, "Oh my gosh, this is they're just over the top. They can't believe it." And I'm thinking to myself, yes, if you would hire an interior designer and you would be quiet and you would trust that they can deliver, and let go a little bit of whatever preconceived notions you have about color or pattern and just let it go a little bit, you could have the most spectacular design ever.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
just let your designer do the same way that, listen, when you go to the doctor, you don't say to the doctor, you know what, I think you should really examine my eyes this way. It might be better. Like
Mhm.
we don't, but with designers, we do.
Yeah.
People do.
Yeah.
They input so much of their own stuff in it, and there's sometimes a lack of, I don't know if it's trust or if it's just the ability to let go, having control
Hmm.
over something, and it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I think control is a big part of it. I mean, we live in a world where everyone is so A-type, so driven, and is so I mean, we have so much information at our fingertips, right? So our clients know a lot and they're interested. A lot of them are like interested in designs. Like, no, I want the clients that aren't really interested, but they value it being nice.
Yes,
you know?
yes,
Not the ones
yes.
that are like, can we go to the showroom? I just love fabric. I'd love to go and see. It's like, no, I'm not
Yeah,
taking you to Cravat.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's an interesting relationship with a residential client, a very interesting, somewhat difficult, hard to navigate. It's like a marriage,
Hmm.
it's hard. So I just started realizing that that was not my strong suit anymore, and it wasn't, my heart wasn't in it. And this kind of fell into my lap and it just worked out beautifully.
So what would you say were some of the biggest learnings you have from this is a big pivot, right? Because
Yes.
residential, as
Hmm.
we just sort of touched on, is very different. So what would you say that you learned from that pivot from residential into high-end medical and dental? And then what
Hmm.
advice would you give to others, like designers listening today who are kind of curious about that niche or looking to pivot and reinvent their business?
Well, I think, you know, reinvention is you need you need the vision of where you're going. You need courage, right? You have to have the courage to trust your abilities and that you'll be able to find your way. And you need to have clarity about it. You need to be clear because I think without those things, it can be daunting. And I think that you don't step into it wholly. And I think that's important. And I also wrote this novel, which is fiction, but it's called Renovation, and it really has a dual meaning about renovating your life and renovating, as an interior designer, because I think we're constantly being challenged to renovate our own lives in a personal way and a career way. And if you don't do those things, I think that you can find yourself in a situation where I was kind of wasn't happy. I knew I was artistic. I knew I had ability, but I wasn't in the right space anymore. I wasn't utilizing it properly and I wasn't fulfilled or happy with it. So it's scary to do that, but I think you have to really evaluate, am I where I want to be? Am I doing the things I want to do? Do I feel fulfilled? And do I feel like I have the ability to transfer this? And I think most will say yes, and you just have to have kind of the courage and the willingness to withstand it and kind of go through that door, which is hard.
So we have to talk about the book. I completely forgot to mention that in the beginning. This book is when my team showed me like your form and the book, I'm like, this is so interesting. I'm like, is this a fiction? You wrote a novel. It's fiction,
Yes,
right? I
it's
haven't read it yet. I
fiction.
want
It's
to get my
fiction.
hands on it.
It's fiction. It's a great summer read, so we're in perfect time for it. Um, many years ago when The Devil Wears Prada came out and I read that book, I thought to myself, so interesting because the interior design business is very similar. There's all this crazy stuff that goes on and no one knows about it. We don't talk about it. Our business is to keep everything quiet. We don't share what goes on with our clients. We have the opportunity to be a fly on the wall. Our clients forget that we are there and we
Mm-hmm.
see and hear things that nobody else does. And we do things that nobody else does. How many times have you moved someone's socks and underwear from one drawer to the other because it's coming in and they got to get the thing out? We do, or you're on your hands and knees scrubbing the grout that's on the bathroom floor because they're going to come home and you're like, we got, you're
Yeah.
there with the tile guy, with your arms, deep in it. And nobody knows that. Nobody hears about that. So I thought to myself, I have so many interesting, eclectic, crazy stories. And I'd love to be able to share them in a way. And that was the beginning of it. And then once I put it down on paper, I realized, it's not so interesting. I really need to really embellish this in a very big way to make it interesting. Because if you sit down and you watch a sitcom or a movie with kind of like your reality hat on, you're like, think somebody would say that. I don't, that's a little far-fetched, but we buy in because it's fiction. We know it's fiction and we're kind of along for the ride. And so it kind of became a lot more interesting and nothing like my clients or my real life in the end, but it's fun. It's fun.
I love it. Will you write a sequel to it, do you think?
Potentially, yes, definitely. A lot of people have been asking about it because they really want to know what happens with the main protagonist in her life. So I think that there's probably a good chance of it. And I'd love for it to be in media of some kind at some point. So we're working on that as well.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. I can't even imagine writing a book is one thing, but then writing a fiction, like writing a novel is like a whole other skill
Yeah,
set.
yeah, it is. You know what? I feel so creative that it's like bubbling over sometimes. So I'm kind of always like taking a pottery class or writing or, because I need a way to have outlets for it. But I tell most people that writing a book is really 25% about actually writing, 25% about editing, which is a completely different skill set than actually writing a story, 25% going out there and pounding the pavement to find an agent, to find a publisher. And then the next 25% is selling it. At the end, afterwards, you
Yeah.
have to market it. So it's, I guess kind of like interior design. There's a big parallel to that where, one looks at interior design objectively from the outside and they think it's one thing. Once you get into it, it's really, there's a lot of hats we have to wear, right? You have to be very organized. You have to be business oriented. You have to be people oriented. You have to work with your tradespeople, the subs. You have to be able to relate to them and work with them. You have to market yourself. It's just the
Yeah.
problem solving. So it's a similar kind of thing.
It's like writing a book is so much more than just being a writer, the way that interior design is so much more than being a designer. Like it's on it. Yeah, in order to be successful with it, you not only have to be a good writer, but then you have to get it out in front of people. It's the whole,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so funny. You grow up, at least when I was growing up, there wasn't as much exposure to all these different careers and jobs. And what we saw was really what we saw in TV shows or movies, and maybe the people around us, the parents around us. And so I really had no idea. And I'm sure people listening feel this way too. I don't know if this was your story, but becoming an interior designer, like I was 1000% not aware of all the hats. I 100% thought I just need to come in and like learn how to design. I'm going to learn AutoCAD. Like it would be so fun to do like furniture. Like I had no concept of all the other parts that were needed in order to run a
Yes.
successful design business. Like had no idea. And even as a writer, kids growing up are like, oh, I want to be a writer. So I love to write. Yes. But in today's world, I mean, I guess you could have a really robust team that does all the marketing for you. But
You
you got
need
to
deep
find them
pockets,
and
deep
you need
pockets
deep
for the,
pockets. Yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely. I think that there's no way that I understood. My career started that I was a textile and apparel design major at Cornell University, and I learned everything about textile science and draping and all these things. And I worked in the fashion
Yeah.
industry for several years, and that's not a great lifestyle. And it's not very lucrative. And I just saw, the people above me, and I was kind of like, that's not where I want to be. So then I went back to school to get a graduate degree at the New York School of Interior Design. But still, there were no classes on business. There were no classes on billing. There were no classes on um, problem solving or marketing
Mm,
or how to engage with your client, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what you can expect, how to write a contract, what should be in your contract. Um, and you have to be a self-starter and a self-motivated person to be in these industries because there's no roadmap. No one's helping you.
hmm It's like school teaches us how to be a great employee. But beyond that, if you want to go and do it yourself and be your own boss, there's a whole gap in the education. And that's where I noticed in my business, which is why I do the podcast, which is why I have
Yeah.
my courses, because I realized that it doesn't take a lot to learn. Like it can feel overwhelming, but as soon as you start to be in community with other designers and learn from others who've gone before you, you start to see, oh, well, if I just tweak my pricing this way, or if I just have this script to say to a client, and all of a sudden you feel more confident. It doesn't take a lot to get there, but it is a gap in the education for sure. And it's still a gap. Because I see students coming into my programs right out of school and there's still that gap. It may not be
Mm,
as big as it once was, but it's still there.
yeah.
I want to talk about money. Can we talk about money? Talk
Yes.
about the
It's like,
money, honey.
yes, yes.
Pricing, because this is always something that designers are asking about and stressing over. And I know for me, I stressed many, many years. How different is pricing your design fees in commercial to residential? And then would you be able to walk us through, what is your business, design fee model?
Yeah. I find it vastly different and a relief. The billing was so complicated, not just from complicated in every sense, complicated in how am I going to charge? What am I going to charge? I remember always feeling the pit in my stomach after I sent it out and being like, I hope they go for that. I hope I didn't overprice it. I hope I didn't underprice it. Still have that a little bit, but then also just the billing, the percentages and the sales tax and it's complicated. Now it's a little bit easier because a lot of the design houses will charge your client directly and charge them sales tax so that you can like relinquish some of that, depending on what your fee structure is. So in the in the commercial world, I've gone to flat fee. I have one fee. I mean, one set fee. It depends on the size of the project, where the project is, how many site visits, all those kind of things, how big it is, how many
Hmm.
square feet, how much, how difficult I think the client is going to be in the situation, also, how much they're going to need. Um, and it's amazing because they're not stressed about it and I'm not stressed about it. It's been decided up front. And usually, I think all of us will admit that our clients end up with the better end of the stick every single time because we never say no. And we always
Hmm.
are kind of like, because we are invested, we want it to look good. It is a reflection upon our reputation. And because of that, we always are going that extra mile. There's never a stopping point really, unless it becomes really egregious. So I just feel good about it because I feel compensated in it. And I like the flat fee because the client isn't watching the clock all the time or
Hmm.
anxious. And on top of that, I've kind of my new business model that I'm, now marketing, I'm working towards is like, I would rather not be at the highest end of the price point for with my competitors. I'd rather do volume.
Hmm.
So I'd rather have more projects because they're much more manageable than residential because there's not all those like nooks and crannies. And a lot of
Hmm.
times the contractors do, I'm specifying things and the contractor's purchasing, the contract is
Right.
installing. So the oversight is a little bit different.
That's so interesting. I've never heard anyone say that. You'd rather have volume. Like this is blowing my mind, honestly. Because okay, I'm like my brain right now is like firing on all cylinders. Because in residential, you're right. There are so many nuances.
You can't do volume in residential.
When
It's
we
almost
had
impossible.
when we would have like let's say 15 projects on the go at the height of like our busiest, it was exhausting because you're bouncing back and forth. You're thinking, okay, what does this client need? And you're right. It's all those 15 personalities. It's, oh, this surprise happened on the site and now we've got to go. It's like, and my goal has always been fewer projects, which means
Right.
fewer people to work with,
Exactly.
and larger scale because it's almost like it's less work but more money. But in commercial, it sounds like it's very different.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
completely different. And you know, it's very structured, because we have site meetings that, a site meeting is called by, either the contractor or the dental consultant or medical consultant, and everybody has to be there. There's none of this tradesman being like, I don't know, I'm not sure, I got to do this, somebody's this happened. There's really none of that.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
authority and structure involved in it. So and there's deadlines. There's very, very strict deadlines. These doctors need to be in, they need to be up and running by a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Every day is a dollar. We really have to be aware of it. So it's tight
Yeah.
schedules, very focused for shorter periods of time. There's none of this
Right.
lingering. There's none of that.
Oh my God. The designers listening are like, yes, please. I want this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. It is tight timelines because it's money. They're literally burning money. They're paying rent. They need to get things up and running. And so it must make it a little bit easier and more lucrative for a designer like you because you can really anticipate how much time you and your team are going to put into it. It's not like, well, I think it's going to take 6 months. And now, meanwhile, 18 months later, and you've charged a flat fee and you're basically running on fumes, you can really, because the opening date and those might shift a little, but they're not going to be the way it is in residential.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, the biggest things are usually done in the beginning. Like all the work has to be done in the very beginning, There's some walkthroughs, obviously, where we tweak things, we see things that don't really work, or the doctor's like, I need a little wider here or there. But in general, everything has to be specified. It really needs
Mm-hmm.
to go out early. Their renderings are done very early. Um, and those I have someone else do because I can't keep up with the technology. So all that, all the CAD that I studied and toiled over was out the window. So, you know, when you form a team, everybody kind of knows what they're doing. We have the deadlines. They have to agree to it very quickly because we need to get to the other side.
What does your team look like today?
I have an assistant who is kind of like as needed. And I have someone who does all my renderings and drawings for me, and then me.
That's it. That's
That's it.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So when you have the process with commercial, I'm just sort of curious because you said everything has to get designed up front. Is it like I'm just sort of, do you do renderings first for conceptual, or do you wait until everything's designed and specified before you have the renderings, and then do they sign off, and then are you present throughout the entire build out? Do you have a limit to how many times you go to site, or is it kind of unlimited? Just help us understand what that process is like in commercial.
Yeah. So I usually have a couple of initial design meetings. Doctors are not, typically they're like, I don't really know. I'm a fish out of water. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Just I like blue, or like
Yeah.
it's very little. There's usually a couple little things that they are specific about, but not too many. So then I'll gather some samples, real life samples, have some meetings on site and just show them. And if we're going in the right direction, once they've kind of like softly approved everything, we do full renderings prior to any sign off. 9 times out of 10, there are no changes. Um, and then we specify everything. I usually do like something in Canva, which basically specifies everything. Everything is marked out. Everything has a style number linked to the website where it can be purchased. I don't really deal with the finances of it. It's usually like a dental consultant that deals with
Mm,
it. So, I mean, I can, but usually the dental consultant is who brings me in because they're very involved in the process because dentists, when it's kind of like they're hiring someone who's like going to be their quarterback through it. Someone's going to help them with their loans, someone who's going to help them with their real estate, someone who's going to help them sign the lease, someone who's going to help them find the contractor, the designer, um, you know, someone to do graphics, all to design their logo, which I'm usually very involved in. But um so they're kind of like the quarterback, and then I report into them as well as the client, and we work as a team. So all of that is done up front, and then once construction starts, I usually put in my contract anywhere between 3 and 6 site visits. I also work all over the country, so obviously some contracts don't have site visits, and
right.
those are a little bit, like they dial back the fee on that a little bit because it's not as much time.
Hmm.
But it's interesting. Sometimes I'm sure I know this is residential too. Sometimes I bid something out and I think that I didn't get it because of price, and they're like, oh no, the designer they went with is, $5,000 more. So sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how they're choosing or what they're choosing or why they're choosing. So I just have to stay in my lane and just, use my work as my
Mm.
example and go with my model of wanting to do more volume and knowing that I'm in the right price point. And yeah, that's how it works.
I love that it's so niche. Like what I'm hearing right now is this is so super niche that it's becoming, because designers are asking me all the time, how do I find clients? How do I find clients? Like where are all the clients? Like how do you get to that place? And it's like you got to get really clear on who you need to connect with. We have a designer in our community
Yes.
who really wants to work with professional athletes. And she's in Denver, Colorado. And somebody in our community shared a link with her. She was like, here, this company does all of the real estate transactions for the like whatever team. I'm like,
Right.
yes,
Yes.
that's where you need to connect. So I'm hearing when you're saying this, I'm like getting goosebumps. I'm so excited for this designer. But is these dental consultants, it's like,
Yes.
who, like they're bringing, it's not that the dentists themselves who want to start their own practice, they're not Googling designers. Maybe they are, but they have a consultant helping them. So those are the people you need to build the relationships with. It's like
Yes.
the people who are, what's the word? It's like they're next to, there's a term for it. The people that are there in their world who are helping advise them, that's where you need to be in front of.
Yeah. And I recently, once I decided that I really wanted to lean into this, I recently started working on the marketing part of it, which for me is, I mean, I really am totally inept when it comes to, I don't even know where to begin. And so I joined this networking group that was, dental consultants. And I went to a couple meetings. The people were phenomenal. They embraced me. And now I'm working on doing public speaking at some of the conferences and continuing education conferences that they have, and just I'm working with a marketing person on just kind of like identifying who I need to talk to, how I'm going to get to them. So I'm really just embarking on all of that right now, to really grow to the next level. Because right now I have a nice steady stream that's really comfortable and nice, but
Mhm.
I want I want it to be a little uncomfortable and feel like I need to have another person, or that I'm traveling more, or I want it to be a little more full. So I'm looking into that now, but it's exactly what you said. It's really identifying of who is touching these people,
Mhm.
who can um, be a voice of saying, "Oh, I know somebody," because that's really the type of business we're in, right? It's mostly referral because someone wants to know that you know that person.
100%. That's exactly what it is. Everyone's like, what are the marketing tactics? It's like, honestly, get in front of the right people, get in the rooms. And it doesn't mean you need to join the country club, but like, who do you know that's working with these clients? Is it realtors? Right? Is it custom builders? Like, who can you, like,
Right.
you connected with that contractor early on and he brought you into this world.
Yeah.
It's so much about peopling.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, once you kind of unlock that, you can really go down that rabbit hole of just expanding it more and more and more. But like we said, it's another hat.
Totally another hat. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of people, I mean, in the early years for me, I hired a publicist
Hmm.
because I was like, how am I going to get featured in a magazine? How are people going to know who I am? Like, I'm in Toronto. It's a busy market here. There's a lot of designers, there's a lot of noise, and it was expensive, but it really helped me. And I learned a lot from that experience. And I don't work with one right now, but yeah, it's a whole other skill set. I
It's
mean,
hard
she,
to invest in your business. Sometimes you're on that cusp of feeling like, do I have this money to invest in it? And what's the ROI? And you don't really know. You don't
no.
really know. But marketing is definitely at the next level these days. It's not how it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it is worth the investment, but you have to identify the right person for the job, depending on,
Mm-hmm.
someone who knows athletes, someone who's in that world, are there agents? Are there people who knows there's just you have to find someone who's in that world and knows that world to market you because a
Yeah,
general marketing person is not going to understand um, the nuances of a professional athlete's needs.
totally. And yeah, Zeet, if you're listening, you know this episode's for you, lady.
Rooting for her.
Yeah, she's awesome. You'll see her soon in big star lights and banners.
Good. Can't wait.
Um, so this has been such a great conversation. Before I don't want to end without talking about just like what are some of give us the juice. Like what are some of the things that you see that are design mistakes that you see in dental offices? Because I know there's some designers listening and they're like, oh, I could do it. Like maybe they could avoid these mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just sort of curious. Now I'm going to go to the dentist and be like
Yeah.
looking around. Actually, that reminds
Well,
me, I
it's
do have to book my cleaning.
well, I hope they have a beautiful office.
You know, they did when they had it done like 15 years ago. It's starting to feel a little wear and tear.
Mm.
They've been bought out by a group. I know I'm sure you see this.
Yes.
And then he retired and he sold to this dental group and they've kind of watered it down a little bit, to be honest with you. I think they might want to invest in a whole, refresh, but I guess once the
Yes.
client base is there, there's less incentive. I don't know if you
Yeah.
see that. I know this wasn't my question, but I'm curious, and
Yes.
then we'll circle back to that juicy question, but do you find that most of your clients are dentists or, groups of dentists who are starting a practice, or have they been in business for a while and they want to refresh?
We have both, and also do medical. In general, I'm doing
Mm.
an optometrist right now. I'm doing a gynecologist office right now. I think people want to provide a boutique experience, so they're looking for that. But I have a mix. I have recently had a client who was in a tiny, tiny office. I don't even know how they were working there, and he had a massive business, and he blew it out, and we built this unbelievably beautiful office, and now he's thriving and he has, triple the amount of exam rooms. And, we have dentists sometimes that have been working for a practice for a few years and they say, you know what, it's time. I want to go out on my own. Some are within the family, the parents are retiring and the children are the
Mhm.
ones who are going to take over the business. And we got to rip off that wood paneling back, from the day. And it's
Yeah.
an industry, medical is an industry, it's coming a long way, but um, the design is needs to be there. It needs to be, you need to pay attention to it. Clients, nowadays, if you go into a periodontist, for instance, you could get a bill for $5,000 easily. If you have a bridge and a root canal, it's a lot of work. You need an implant. It's a lot. And if you're writing that check or you're giving that credit card and you're in an office that is, feels old and decrepit and dirty, or makes you feel anxious, it doesn't make you feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
putting your trust in someone who values cleanliness and who values organization and who values quality, the quality of the light, the quality of the space, the comfort of the waiting room or the exam room. And on the flip side, doctors can't function and be as productive if their office is not well run and well
Mm-hmm.
laid out, if things are not in the right place, if they're digging for things because they don't have the proper storage, or their staff doesn't have a quiet place that they can go and just sit for a minute when they have their break. Um, you know, it really affects the patient experience all the way around.
Totally, totally. I've seen this firsthand very recently. My kids are now going to a new dentist. It's like specific for children here in Toronto, and they are amazing because you walk in, it's beautifully designed. There's a little play structure for the kids. The kids get excited to go there. They have little gumball machines that you can like, they're not full of gum,
Right.
they're full of little toys.
Yes.
Right. But it's like the way they've set it up, mind you, the acoustics are not good. I feel like they have too many hard surfaces. As the designer, I'm like,
Hmm.
this is so loud.
Yeah.
But there's that experience. And then I went to recently to a dermatologist where it was like old, crowded, you're waiting. The receptionists were so grumpy, they're grouchy every time you're there because no kidding, you're in this tiny little room with all these patients all day long. Who knows where they go? They probably go to a windowless room for their break.
Yeah.
And there has to be something to and as designers, we get it, but your surroundings are going to affect your mood, and that's going to translate to your patients.
100%. And the bottom line is important, like doctors are similar to interior designers. They are not taught how to run a business and how to have the proper billing and the technology and how to hire staff and how to manage staff. What do you do if one staff member is like the rotten egg and kind of like spoiling everybody else, but they're a really good employee? So many things that I've learned at these conferences that I go to, and all of it is of value because they're not taught this. So we need to help them
Hmm.
along. The consultants help them along. I help them along, and they're, I think, starting to realize that their space that they work in, they want to walk into a space every day too. It's their office every single day. This is where they spend
Mm-hmm.
majority of their time. If that's uncomfortable or depressing, or the quality of the light, you can't do your work properly with that. It takes its toll, and they may not realize it, but you can grow significantly more. And then your marketing, if you have this big, beautiful office that you've just built, all renovated, even if you renovate your existing space, freshen it up a little bit, change the kelvins in the lighting, make sure that if you don't have windows, make sure that the paint color is lighted, that it's not sucking in all the light. Um, you can then market that, and people will respond.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the mistakes. What are some of the juicy
Yes.
mistakes you see?
Well, dental is very specialized compared to medical, because dental, you need water lines, you need gas, there's surgery going
Right.
on. So those are some technical things that take some time to learn. There's a learning curve with that because you really need to be aware of that, the right questions to ask the doctor. You prefer your tools on the right side or the left side? Little things like
Mm.
that kind of make a difference.
Hmm.
Some of the mistakes that I see mostly with design is that they look at the design more like a clinical area rather than um, an area where you're going to have people with emotions. So, we
Right.
don't want it to feel like a hospital. Not everything should be white. Not every, add some color, have some fun. It's okay to take some ideas from residential and pull it into the medical world. It's okay. We can
Mm.
do that within the constraints of having, the things that we need that are, you know, that are what's the word I'm looking for? That hygienic, that are hygienic. We need certain things that are hygienic and we need certain things that are, to code. But even within that, you can still be creative. You can still add fun. It can still be exciting. And I think some of the mistakes are
Hmm.
made when you lean too much towards the clinical part of it.
Mm. Yeah, it's like I keep thinking about this kid, this pediatric center. Or sorry, no, it's not. Well, they have that too. They're doing everything. But the children's sort of dental practice with all the hard surfaces. And I'm thinking, like, I get it. It's easier to clean, it's sterile, but oh my God, the sound in it, you've got lots of children in there, right? So like it's
Yes,
very loud. There's resonating. I know people don't like to use carpet tile anymore, or maybe
right.
they do. But I mean, when I go to my dentist, oh, it is such a serene place. Like there's carpet tile outside, not in the rooms where you're having the
Yes.
work done, but wow, what a different Zen feeling.
Hmm.
And night and day. And so I don't know the practices and what's used in mental medical facilities now is quite different than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I get that hard surfaces are easier to clean, but it's not an enjoyable experience for a parent when you're sitting waiting and there's like so much sound in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, and we
Um,
and we have to
oof.
address those issues. I've had pediatric practices that specify with children with special needs, and a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
those children that are on the spectrum have hypersensitivity to sound, and sometimes they wear earphones because of the sound of even like the equipment or the
Mhm.
tools.
Right.
So there's, certain situations where we have to be highly sensitive to that. I mean, the things that I do to try and avoid that, I add wallpaper where I can. The furnishings in the patient lounge are always soft, chairs with
Yes.
fabric, and I try and have, a decent amount of it. So it's not some, it's more soft rather than metals and things like that. We use LVT flooring, which is more like a rubberized flooring rather than a tile flooring. So it's kind of somewhere in between, it's
Hmm.
not as quiet as a carpet would be, but it's also not as reverberating as a ceramic tile would be, or something kind of like that. So we do
Yeah.
things like that to absorb some of the sound. Some of it is the space and the architecture of the space. So we may get a space that the ceiling height potentially could be 12 feet, but I'm not going to put that all the way throughout because that's going to affect my sound. So we'll drop
Hmm.
it down. Also for cost situations, we'll do some will be a sheetrock ceiling, some will be a drop ceiling, because they also need to get into they need access to equipment in the ceiling
Hmm.
sometimes too. So, those ceiling, panels also help a little bit with the sound. So I think the architect needs to be a little bit aware of the space and what's going on, because the higher ceilings, and if there's nothing there to grab it, I agree with you. It's
Exactly.
hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like what we're talking about is that mistake, and we see it in residential too, where you just want it to look good, but there's actually so many considerations. It's so much more. It's about functionality and it's about, noise canceling, and there's so many different layers that we think about in residential, but maybe you also have to be even more hyper aware in that space in the medical offices. So interesting. Oh my God, I could
Yeah.
talk about this all day. It's so fascinating. I know my listeners are going to love this conversation. Before we wrap up today, do you have a last nugget of wisdom for our listeners?
I think that, one of the great things about writing my book was, it's called Renovation, and it has dual meaning. You can read it and it can be a light read and you can feel like it's about renovating an interior design. But if you want to dive a little deeper and be a little more cerebral, it's, really about renovating her life, the protagonist. And I would say that I always say, take a minute and see like where in your life can you reinvent or renovate for it to be what you want it to be, for
Mm,
you to feel appreciated by your clients, for you to feel compensated properly, that you feel that appreciation on a level that's not just of someone saying, oh, good job, but also I'm paying you your worth, for what you deserve. And all those things need to align. So just have the courage to ask yourself those questions and not be afraid, and have the courage to reinvent yourself, even when, courage, you have to remember, is not in the absence of fear. Courage always has fear Everyone has the fear.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to acknowledge that, but just say, I have the fear, but I'm going to have enough courage to overcome that. And I think that this whole business takes a lot of courage, interior design, because you have to be self-motivated. You have to, find your own way. There's, unless you're working for a bigger firm where someone's kind of giving you marching orders. And even then, you still need to come up with your own creativity and your own style and your own way of communicating with clients. So I would say just, don't forget yourself in all of it and just keep reaching for that next reinvention or renovation of your own self and your own goals within this industry.
I love that. You don't have to pivot the way that Leslie's done it, right?
Right.
It's not necessary to completely shift gears unless that's what your calling is and you see that opportunity. It's about where can we renovate? Like a renovation is not tear it down and build again, right?
Right.
A renovation, you're
Exactly.
remodeling, you're adjusting, you're making changes, you're shifting. And this is such great advice because designers can relate to this, right? Because this is what we're doing all the time. Whether it's
Yes.
a refresh of the furniture or you're tearing down some walls, like where in your own business and life can you renovate? Is it time to sort of maybe reinvent a little without throwing everything out, baby out with the bathwater, as they say?
Yeah, exactly. You can hang on to so many things. It could be a small tweak, and it could be, like you were saying before, like really having the clarity of understanding what it is, what is the problem, what's the why, what's the pain point. And once you can understand that, then you can address it. And a lot of times it
Mm-hmm.
can just be a small thing. Like, you know what, that program for my billing, like that really is sit down and I want to bang my head. I can't, you know what? Let me find a better way, or let me see, can I find somebody part-time to maybe deal with this for me? Just
Mm-hmm.
something to try and, make sure that you're doing, the best that you can for yourself.
Yeah. And it could also be something like maybe you're offering every service known to man, like under the sun, like paint consultations, designer for a day, let's go shopping. I'll do floor plans. Like, sure, you want me to be on site? I'll consult. Like, that can be exhausting. Maybe it's just getting clear on, hey, maybe I don't want to offer all of this. And I just want to do, I don't know, decorating. And I don't actually love the renovation. Like, maybe you just need
Mhm.
to lean in. Like, it's sometimes just leaning into that thing that lights you up that maybe to your point, Leslie, there's going to be fear. That's not going to disappear. But it's the courage exists when there's fear. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just doing something. You're trying something new and it'll probably not work, but it doesn't matter. It's like you got to try something new enough and hard enough and challenging enough for it to really push you forward.
Yeah, and I think that this
Yeah.
industry, a lot of us are so, like I was saying before, we want our work to look great, and we sacrifice ourselves a little bit, sometimes too much with our clients because we have so much personally invested in it that, we these designs are like our babies, we really fall into that, and it's sometimes hard to navigate.
Absolutely. Such great advice. Thank you so
Thank
much for coming
you.
on the podcast
Thank you
today.
for your time. I really appreciate the invitation and I love your podcast and I'm so excited to see what's next for you.
Amazing. Likewise. Can you let everyone listening know where they can find and follow you?
Yes, sure. I'm on Instagram, which is Leslie Abner underscore interior underscore design, or my website is leslieabnerstudio.com. And
And your book, where can they get your
my
book?
book is available on Amazon. Renovation, it's called, and Leslie Abner. There's a couple other renovations, so sometimes it doesn't always come up, but it has a bright pink color cover on it. I wish I had it here to show you. And yeah, I hope it's a great summer read, really fun, and I think that your interior designer listeners will really get a kick out of it and relate to some of it.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to read it myself. Can I get it on Kindle?
You can.
Okay,
You
perfect. So I have a
can.
Kindle that
Yes.
I'm traveling a lot this summer and I don't want to have to bring all these books.
No,
So
no, digital,
perfect.
digital, digital copy, and we're working on the Audible right now.
Oh, exciting. Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I'm so happy that you were here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys, how good was that episode with Leslie? Thank you so much, Leslie, for being my guest. I really enjoyed our conversation at the very end, that nugget of wisdom where we talked about how you can reinvent yourself or remodel or renovate yourself. You have to get her book. I cannot wait. As soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going to hop on over to Amazon. I'm going to download it to my Kindle because I've got a lot of travels coming up this summer and I want to be able to bring different books with me. That is on my summer reading list. So I cannot wait to report back to everyone. I'm sure it's going to be a fun read, especially since we get the idiosyncrasies of renovation so well. But if you are a designer listening today and you have felt something's got to change, or am I really doing this right? Maybe this is your sign. Maybe today's episode is your sign to really take a look, like look in the mirror at yourself and your business and figure out, where is an area that I could tweak? Is there an area I want to reinvent? Am I happy with how I'm doing things? And maybe you are, maybe you're just starting out and you're like, Rebecca, that's what I'm doing. Well, that's awesome. But for the rest of us, it might just be an opportunity, especially in these quieter months, to really think about where we want to take this next year, because now's a good time to start thinking about it. All right. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you could share it with a friend. And especially if you know anyone who's looking at moving from residential to commercial or the opposite, this can be a really great listen for them. And we're on YouTube. So, guys, go have a look on the tube. All right. That's it. I'll see you soon.